I could just snap the head off this defense attorney, Ann Taylor, if I could get close enough to her.
What was that, Nancy? Hey guys, this is Jules with True Crime Reactions. Disclaimer. Everything stated in this video is my opinion and my opinion only. And just like everything else in these cases we discuss here on this channel, everything is alleged. Okay, it is Saturday around noon time, and I finally have time to sit down and finish the entire episode of Nancy Grace's panel from her reaction to what happened in the Bryan Kohberger hearing the other day. Now, I mentioned a portion of this in my review reaction breakdown of the hearing itself, because a lot of you guys were telling me, hey, you need to go watch this. This is ridiculous. I can't believe how she's acting. There's a lot of you that have a lot of issues with Nancy Grace, and a lot of y'all's issues are my issues. Okay, these just this episode alone and the small amount that I already saw, and just knowing how she is, it makes me wear that blocked badge just a whole lot more proudly, honestly. Now, this very first part, you guys that watched my review of the actual hearing breakdown will have seen already, because there is misinformation in the very beginning of this thing about how the survey itself works. So I'm just going to go ahead at this point, and I am going to take from my other video that information, the clip from the show, and my response and my thoughts on it, along with my fake little survey taker call examples that I have in there. And I'm just going to go ahead and place that in here in its, instead of me having to do all of that all over again. So if you guys already saw my previous video, fast forward to this timestamp. And the first thing he does is give false information about the process of this survey.
We have a situation where 400 jurors in a small county have now been contacted and told they've been given 9 questions about how they feel about Bryan Kohberger. And those are questions that, if they were ignoring this case, they now know an awful lot about it. Very incriminating information about Bryan Kohberger that is now, as a prosecutor said, is now saturated with with potential jurors in the case.
And for you guys that watch my reaction to this entire thing, you'll see this clip in there again. But it's in here because in order for you guys to understand the way that this hearing all went and what the point of this is for this part right here, this very incorrect portion that's already out there on Nancy Grace's channel to be seen by the hundreds of thousands of people and be told to incorrectly, okay? This is how this process works, okay? The survey team uses a system that literally just randomly puts phone numbers together based off of the area codes for the counties that are being called, okay? And they randomly call these numbers until they have 400 different sets of answers. For this case specifically, there was 400 people surveyed. All 400 people were not given these 9 very important questions, okay? The 3 to 4%, which is insane, but also not shocking. Out of 400 people, only 3 to 4% did not know about this case. So therefore, the other 97 to 96% of those 400 people already knew parts of the information that they were getting in this survey. They already were very aware of the rumors online, the stuff that social media pushes. They know the narrative, all right? The only real people that could have been tainted here would have been those 3 to 4% that didn't know. But the way that the survey works, because they do know that you cannot meddle in what happens with a jury, right? Those 3 to 4% were not asked anything else. This is how the phone call would have gone for the people who don't know anything about the case. Hi. Yes, I'm calling with a survey about a court case that's happening in Latell County in 2025. Can I ask you a few questions since you're local to the area? Okay, well, what's your name? Okay, and your date of birth, or how old are you? And what town are you in? Because, there are several towns in a county sometimes, right? Okay. Okay, so have you read, seen, or heard anything about the Idaho student murder case, the one that we are waiting to go to trial for, where it's the state of Idaho versus Bryan Kohberger? Oh, you haven't? Okay. Where do you normally get your news from? Okay. And how often do you normally like read the newspaper? So do you turn on the news every day, like at dinner, or is it just like something that you kind of see, or is it like a, Facebook feed? Okay, okay, okay. And who's your favorite news station? Where do you like to get your news from? What's your preferred source of news? All right. Okay. Okay. Well, I very much appreciate your time. I will hope you have a great day. Thank you. No information, bro. No information. That's how those conversations for those 3 to 4% of people that did not know anything about this case would have gone. Now, for the other ones, this is also very gauged. Okay. This is how I'm understanding it. If you were to get this phone call and answered the question of, have you read, seen, or heard anything about the Idaho student murder case, the one that's going to be going to trial in 2025, where it's the state of Idaho versus Bryan Kohberger? Oh, you have? Okay, well, would you mind telling me, the kind of details that you do know about the case? Yeah, there were 4. Yes. Oh, okay. Okay. If this person literally only knew that there was like 4 victims and that the person was in jail and that like it happened in the local area, they wouldn't really have like a perception about what else this person knew, right? But it would still open up to the 9 questions. And this is the reason why. Triggers to memory. So again, I still stand by this. It's not okay that now there's hundreds of thousands of people in Nancy Grace's audience that now believe that these 400 people were tainted with information that we know that it's not true, right? But saying basically that they were tainted with information whenever in reality it's information that they already knew. And that was proven by this survey. Now, something that goes along with that is something that I didn't catch the first time, and it's mentioned by the narration voice. So this is what was said.
Prosecutors now say the polling company was asking questions to plant negative opinions of Kohberger in potential jurors' minds in the hopes the calls would serve to prove that local people were prejudiced against Kohberger and the trial should be moved to another county.
Now, this is an interesting concept because the way that I'm taking this is that they're claiming that the defense conducted this survey just for the purpose of misinformation or information that makes Bryan Kohberger look bad or look worse being placed into the public in order for there to be bias like planted that wasn't already there, because this information on these surveys is going to create bias that wasn't there already, which can't be true, right? Just the simple fact that only 12 to 16 people out of 400 had no idea about this case and didn't get asked any further questions says a lot. Now, maybe the initial thought could have been, hey, we're going to do this survey and hope that a bunch of crazy information gets put out there. But I doubt it, because the defense didn't have anything to do with these questions. Nothing. And Nancy Grace seems to like either not comprehend that, or that just seems to get thrown out the window whenever people are giving their opinions on this. They're blaming Ann Taylor for information getting out there and all this crazy stuff, when in reality this has been conducted in hundreds of high profile cases and is very not abnormal. Okay. So, considering the fact that the defense didn't have anything to do with the types of questions, they didn't say okay to the questions, they didn't review the questions. It was like, from what we determined from the email situation of the gag order information being emailed over to Dr. Edelman back in January, and these surveys apparently going live and being complained about in like early mid-March, they took a good month and a half to 2 months to dig into all of that local information to create these questions. And then the survey got started, and all the defense was really told, from how it seems, is, hey, we've started the survey. We'll let you know whenever we're done. And then whenever everything was concluded, because they did finish the entirety of Latah County, which Ann Taylor says over and over again, we've completed this. We can tell you this county ain't good. This county is biased as shit. This is not going to be a fair trial place for him. We cannot have this here. But what I cannot tell you is which direction that we should go in order to make this a fair trial, because you've halted us from continuing the comparison part of this entire situation. I understood what Bill Thompson was saying about how false information is being put out there, and then the people are not being told that, hey, by the way, what I just said she was not true. What I just said she was a false situation. It's a false statement. I understand that because I felt the exact same way. But then again, why hasn't the prosecution, the state, anyone in charge of all of this gag order bullshit, how come they haven't ixnayed all of this false information going on in the media? That's what I'm saying about, like, there has to be a way for there to be a meet in the middle here, okay? If Bill Thompson is going to get so emotional and be so adamant that the whole statement about Bryan Kohberger stalking one of the victims is false, then why haven't they come out and told the media, hey, that's a false statement. Y'all need to quit spreading that around? Why haven't they, for the sake of his public perception up until this point, come out and told Ashley Banfeld and Nancy Grace and Jennifer Coffindaffer and all the rest of these assholes out here? Why haven't they come out here and said, hey, this stalking rumor that you guys are sharing on HBO and Paramount and Lifetime and all these TikTok channels and all these interviews that Gonzalez families are going to, why haven't they come out and put a stop to it before now? Okay. Now, as for anything being planted into the public, I have had the thought that maybe the intention of the survey was true to what it is. It's literally just a survey because they have to prove their point, right? Like, I'm just going to come out and claim there's no way in hell that that county wasn't going to be biased. The survey was kind of pointless. It's really just something of that whole, like, oh, they have to prove their work things, because everyone knows there's no way in shit this was going to happen in that county. There's no freaking way. Everyone knew that without it having to be documented, but they have to show their work. Amazingly, the feds don't, anybody else doesn't, but the defense does. But as for this statement by this narrator, the defense cannot be blamed for any information that was put into the public. So for the prosecution to say this survey was created in order to worsen Bryan Kohberger's reputation in Latah County in order to prove the defense's sentiment for needing a venue change, to me is some boo-boo. That information was already out there. Like, if there would have been a higher percentage of people that didn't know about the case, I would maybe lean on, okay, the defense is just trying to use this as something. But dude, 3 to 4%, 3 to 4% didn't know anything about the case. That's enough. Like, there's nothing else to say. Okay, so now we're going to go through her responses to these 9 questions, her reactions to these 9 questions. Let's see what she's got to say.
Okay, here we go. Have you read, seen, or heard if Bryan Kohberger was arrested at his parents' home in Pennsylvania? Well, whoa, wait a minute. What if the circumstances of that arrest had been thrown out? What if the jury wasn't allowed to hear that he was apprehended standing in his kitchen, his parents' kitchen, in some shorts, I think possibly his underwear, wearing rubber gloves, separating trash? Okay, right there, strike 1. What normal guy is wearing rubber gloves in his parents' kitchen, in his underwear, separating the trash?
What do you mean? What do you mean? Okay, for one, she's sitting here claiming, what if they're not allowed to hear blah, 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 while then literally going into very, very intricate detail about all of these things that were circumstances of his arrest that they might not be able to hear. She has a hell of a lot more reach than anybody that's going to be watching these hearings. Okay, she has a hell of a lot more reach and a lot more credibility because she's been around for so freaking long. Her words are reaching more people in that area than anything that's being spoken by Bill Thompson, Ann Taylor, Judge, or anyone else in that courtroom. Most people don't even give a damn about ever looking at anything that has an official freaking label on it. They get everything that they go off of from mainstream media, from people like Nancy Grace. So for her to come out here and say, oh, well, what if they're not allowed to hear? And then blah, 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 blah. Miss Ma'am, you just did worse than anything that what just happened. You just did worse than what Bill Thompson did, because there was only a few thousand people that maybe watched that hearing. But then we're out here by the hundreds of thousands talking about it, just like I'm replaying what you just said right now. This is information that has been going around for over a year. What the hell do you mean? What if they're not allowed to hear? Why wouldn't the circumstances of his arrest be known? Usually whenever you go into a trial, especially one that they're claiming is going to last, what is it, like 6 weeks? 6 weeks, right? Like, it's going to be a long, 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 long trial. Why wouldn't the circumstances of his arrest be told? Okay, we've been told that the circumstances of his arrest are not on camera. A lot of people think that that's not true because of all of the agencies that were involved that night, because we know there's like stipulations for body cams for certain agencies that were involved, but there are also agencies that were involved that have been proven to have been involved in his arrest, that they are required to have their body cams on at all times. So there's probably going to be something that pops up. There has been way too much talk about his arrest for them to just not talk about it whatsoever in trial. Just the fact that there's a whole nother state involved, why would not that be mentioned in trial? You literally have to divulge everything. That doesn't even make any sense.
2. Have you read, seen, or heard if police found a knife sheath on the bed next to one of the victims? Okay, that goes straight to finding DNA. Let's see the next set of questions. 9 questions in all.
Okay, but it also goes into what's in the PCA, what's in the exhibits for the PCA, what's been going around forever, and what we have continued to gather details on over the last like year and a half almost now. We've gotten more and more details about the location of the knife versus the location of the bodies, which body was where, which victim was where, how each victim was laying, which one was by the wall, which one was by the edge of the bed, which position their bodies were in, how the room looked, how the door opened. We've gotten more and more details from that since that probable cause exhibit was released to the public that told us that. So why wouldn't this be something that wouldn't be in trial? This is the probable cause order. And in order for them to like prove they've got the right guy, don't they have to say like what got him on their radar to begin with and prove how they proved their case? Isn't this going to be talked about in court? What's the problem? What is the problem? This is something that is that everyone's going to know. Everyone is going to know that knows about this case. I feel like she's literally just like reaching for the stupidest crap right now. I'm not impressed. I knew I wouldn't be.
Have you read, seen, or heard that DNA found on the knife sheath was later matched to Bryan Kohberger? Okay, wait a minute. What if by some impossible feat the defense managed to get that DNA thrown out? Well, now they've just tainted the jury pool by telling them there was DNA on the knife sheath that matched to Bryan Kohberger. 4.
Okay, well, they already said that they were going to be, they meaning the state, was supposed to be filing a motion of limine in order to exclude the IgG stuff, which still has not been filed from what I can remember, still has not been filed. So she's literally stating that there's a possibility, a far possibility, but a possibility on the off chance that the defense is able to get the strongest piece of evidence that the state has, which is this little sprinkled nothingness of touch DNA. Okay. That literally is like their strongest evidence. They've claimed it in documents. Okay. We've gone over this. It was well over a year ago. Now, maybe there's something else by now. Okay. It's been a while. I don't know what else they've got, but I know that in several documents, they've claimed that the strength of their case relies on the fact that his DNA is on the knife sheath. And people that know a lot about touch DNA know that doesn't mean much. So not only that, but the defense has also made it very clear that they are aware that the test results lead back to what they lead back to. And if they haven't been able to prove at this point that something happened that put the DNA there and it's not really supposed to be there or something else, they probably would have handled that by now, unless they plan to prove it at trial. Unless somehow they're able to prove how his DNA actually got there other than what the consensus is so far, I don't know how the DNA is going to be something that could be thrown out at all. They would have to literally use it as a tool for themselves, the defense, at least in the way that I'm thinking. So again, I just feel like she just wants to come out with the most like ridiculous statements and yell as loud as she possibly can while she's saying those things so that people know, like people's brains compute that it's like a legit thing because of her emotion and her tone of voice is matching. You know what I mean? It's all like a psych thing. It's all psychological. Anyway, next one.
Have you read, seen, or heard if Kohberger owned the same type of car reported seen driving in the neighborhood where the killings occurred? Right there, we see where the defense is going. We all know his vehicle was spotted in the area.
No, we don't. No, we don't. Nothing in what was told to us in the exhibits for the probable cause claimed that they found any sort of insignia or anything on the car in the footage that actually places it to be Bryan's car. It's all circumstantial. It is literally all circumstantial. They don't say, and there's a WSU parking sticker on the bottom of the window, whatever, the back of the window. They don't claim, oh, and this is the license plate. This is what it read. You're telling me we can take pictures of the effing moon and solar flares coming off of the sun during the total solar eclipse, but we can't get a clear image of the license plate that's on this car that's apparently in all of the security footage where they were able to track the location and the driving route of this car for hours on end, but not a single camera picked up enough to read a license plate. Come on. And let's also not forget that the age range of the car being looked for also changed. That's important. The timing of that change and what caused that change is really, really important.
5. Have you read, seen, or heard if the cell phone tower data showed Kohberger made several trips near the victim's home in the month before the killing? That tells me they're going to attack the cell phone tower information.
Okay, so it was several. Okay, I thought I heard 7. Still not a big deal. I mean, it is a big deal, but it's still not a big deal because I'm just a person with bad hearing and it's not actually in the court record. And what's in the court record is all that matters. But obviously, it is several and not 7. My bad. But again, this is something in the PCA. This is something that's in the exhibits for the PCA. This is something that has been being pushed by people like Nancy, by people like Banfield, like people like Coffindaffer, like people like Como, okay, like people that are all over getting millions of views a day on cable TV, on YouTube, on their YouTube shorts, on their apps for their networks, on the websites, okay? They are getting millions of views a day. You know, I was actually talking to my daughter about this a couple days ago. Let's just sidetrack for a second, okay? And I'm going to use Nancy Grace as an example for this because this is whose information that we're going over right now. Let me take this off. Okay. She's on YouTube, right? She has her crime online stuff on YouTube. You know damn well that you get ads. Unless you're paying YouTube for no ads, which I never would ever do that. YouTube is not getting any of my money ever. Unless you are paying for no ads, you're skipping ads and getting ads as you're watching these episodes, right? On Nancy Grace. She also has her Crime Online channel where these play in like podcast form and there's like an article, okay? There's advertisers on those pages that pay to be on those pages, okay? Then she also has her Twitter page, which is monetized, which I'm pretty positive is monetized. I don't know that for sure, but I just know these people try to get as much money as they can off of these things as they totally can as possible. So I'm just going to assume that her traffic and Crime Online's traffic on Twitter is monetized, right? I don't know if they have a TikTok page. They might have a TikTok page. I'm not really sure. But they also take clips. We've seen a lot of it with like the Sebastian Rogers case here recently. They take clips and they re-upload clips and they take old episodes and they re-upload them without really letting people know that they've re-uploaded them, okay? My point is this. She's getting paid like 6 times for the exact same boo-boo, all right? And it goes to tell you about the platforms. She's reaching so many people with her anger and her hatred and her misinformation and the way that she yells and screams and makes everyone think that doesn't know better. Sorry, not sorry, but that doesn't know better. That just because she gets loud and crazy about something that it's true. Just as of now, this video has 160,000 views, okay? How many people watched this on TV? How many people watched this on Crime Online's like website? Because it does have like the whole like podcast form, but then it also has the videos that come out and there's articles. And then there's also the Crime Online is also on iHeart. She's getting paid for that too. So how many freaking millions of people alone have heard this exact same narrative from like 7 different platforms? Because this is also on Facebook. It's also on Facebook. So not only is she getting paid like 7 to 8 times over for the exact same string of words that she's putting together for these things, but that's multiple platforms that this information is being shared on. Her boo-boo, Coffindaffer's boo-boo, Banfield's boo-boo, all their boo-boos is reached by millions of times more people than anything that could be from the horse's mouth itself. Because for some reason, that's how most people like to do things. They like to get their information secondhand because it's too much work. It's too much time to go in and get it from the source. That's why we're out here trying to figure things out, because there's so much misinformation and so much back and forth and so much chaos. if anyone should be shutting up about anything being tainting, it's her, because she's the worst one at it. At least one of the biggest ones.
Have you read, seen, or heard if university students in Moscow and their parents lived in fear until Kohberger was arrested for their murders? What does that tell me? They're going.
Okay, so I must have misheard this one the first time, because the way that I sort of understood this was it was like the victims' families, if they were living in fear up until Bryan Kohberger was arrested, and it was really more of like a community-based question. And I'll say this. Yeah, they were, because no one understood how there could be a quadruple homicide and then the police department come out within a few hours and be like, oh, there's no threat to the community. Go on about your business. That's not normal. That's not normal. That's not okay. That's a police force that doesn't care about their people. Like, obviously, people need to use their own brains, right? Obviously, if there was just a quadruple homicide in your neighborhood, you need to be a hell of a lot more vigilant than you were the day before, right? But for some people, you literally have to hold their hand. You just have to. I mean, seriously, there's a reason, a really, really, really sad and pathetic reason why there is do not drink warnings on bleach bottles. Okay. Sometimes you have to tell people how to react and act to things. So for them to come out and be like, oh, there's no problem. Oh, there's no threat to the community. That wasn't cute. That wasn't cute at all, because they never told us how they knew that. And if they knew that early on that this was a very targeted and isolated incident, that means they would have to have known the reasoning. And they didn't know crap about Bryan Kohberger until when? They let this man go all the way across the country, and there's literally nothing that points to them knowing that he had anything to do with anything. It was literally the feds doing the IGG and them sending this family tree over to the police that got Bryan caught up, according to what we've been officially told anyway. So none of this really makes any sense as to how the community all of a sudden within a few hours was like just told to go on about business as normal. There's no threats. So of course the actual community themselves lived in fear because they knew that something was wrong with that. They knew that there's no way in shit that they should just be feeling like everything is fine and dandy. That is not at all how it works. Whenever you wake up on a Sunday morning and that kind of situation has happened in your reality, that's not normal. You're going to freak out. How many people moved? So many people literally like broke leases and left. Okay. So many people went to online school. A lot of people freaked out. And granted, definitely worth the freak out. I would have been freaking out. I would have been hella freaking out. If my kid lived in that area, oh no. I'm driving down and we're done and you're transferring schools and we're not doing this because these people are not taking this seriously. If I was a parent in that area and saw how quickly they told the community to not even worry about it, I'd have been done. That is so negligent and pathetic. No.
Going to tell the jury that Kohberger's arrest was premature and police were pressured because everyone was living in fear. Let's see the rest. Let's see number 7.
I mean, that's something that people have talked about, how they were feeling pressure because the next semester was rolling around, which is still so ridiculous to me because this did not happen on campus. Had nothing to really do with the college whatsoever because it wasn't one sorority or one fraternity. It was a mixed house. These girls paid rent and signed leases. This was not an on-campus situation, but they really did want to like get this summed up because the next semester was starting. We already know that. Duh, we know that. They got rid of that house way too quick for there not to be intentions behind everything that the university did at this point.
Have you read, seen, or heard if Kohberger said he was out driving alone the night of the murders?
I mean, yeah, because all of the news people have talked about it. All of the news people have talked about it. These, again, are just questions that were created over a month and a half to 2 months worth of time of researching just the local area information. So this is like the Idaho Statesman. This is like a newspaper from the school, maybe. This is like local channels. It's all within like a certain radius, I'm sure, because they need to stay within, the state. Maybe the entire state. I don't know like the actual local news that's being pulled for this. Maybe Moscow. I wonder actually if each county is going to be different. Like if they do go to like a Kootenai County or however you say it, if the Kootenai County local news is going to be pulled and it might be a little bit different than the Latah County local news. You know what I mean? Or if they're just going to use the exact same questions. I think they would basically have to use the exact same questions, right? For there to be like a constant. Yeah.
Man, I'd come up with a different alibi if I could. But sadly for them, they've already committed to this. They can't change it now. 8, have you read, seen, or heard Kohberger stalked one of the victims? And 9, have you read, seen, or heard?
See, look at that. She just went right past it. Okay, so this literally is at like less than 10 minutes of the video. She better come back around to this, and she better make note of this, and she better say something about this, because she literally, this is the second time now that she has had this mentioned in her show in less than 10 minutes. The girl, I think her name is Tara, mentioned it, and again Nancy just glanced right over it, didn't say a damn thing, didn't have a response. And right now she's had something to say after every single one of these 9 questions. And number 8, she read as fast as she could and moved on to number 9 with no commentary. Shame on you, disgrace. Shame, shame, shame.
If Kohberger had followed one of the victims on social media. And you know what's interesting? That may not even come into evidence. Allegations that Kohberger had been stalking, we think it was Kaylee Goncalves, not sure yet, one of the victims on social. That may never come into evidence.
Okay, so she did continue the statement. Okay, but she's also trying to make excuses as to not acknowledge the fact that this is a big deal for people that automatically put Bryan on the guilty side of things. Okay, most of us have already questioned and sort of already knew he wasn't stalking the victims, because every single time any sort of interview was done with the Goncalves family or any sort of evidence, okay, big air quotes, was brought out about this whole thing, whether it be in person or on social media, it was either debunked, or whenever the interviews were being done with the Goncalves family, the company or the production company or whoever was doing the interview would always have some sort of disclaimer about how they were unable to validate the information, meaning they were unable to validate that what the Goncalveses were stating about Bryan Kohberger stalking any of the victims on social media could not be validated, because any information the Goncalveses had that was being shown to them via screenshots or any of those other things that they've told us for over a year now that they had proof of, whoever they're showing it to, they're not seeing what the Goncalveses are seeing. They're not seeing dates that correlate with what they're claiming, in my opinion, which is why they can't validate it and why they let them talk, but then have a huge disclaimer claiming, oh, we can't validate any of this information. That is spreading misinformation if you can't validate it. You've got millions of people watching stuff like that. It's just wild.
But isn't it true, Chris McDonough, that so often the victims get lost in the sauce of all the courtroom antics? I mean, I could just snap the head off this defense attorney, Ann Taylor, if I could get close enough to her.
What was that, Nancy?
I could just snap the head off this defense attorney, Ann Taylor, if I could get close enough to her.
Okay, now I know I said that I could have like slapped Bill Thompson the other day whenever I felt like he was being really like super condescending to Dr. Edelman, but snapping someone's head off is literally like death. So is this like a public death threat from Nancy Grace to Ann Taylor? Like I'm honestly, like, I'm for real right now.
See, we're seeing them in life. That's not how they were found. That is not how, according to the state, Kohberger left them. Explain.
That's a very so biased statement. See, stuff like that shouldn't be allowed. If they can't sit there and come out and tell us the truth about whether he actually did have a social media account that was following any of them, then why are statements like that allowed to be said by people like Nancy Grace? That is wild. Now, this is a very specific detail, and it's a little bit different than what we've heard before, so I'm wondering where he heard this from when it comes to Xana's defensive wounds. Because we've heard that the wounds in her hands were in her fingers, and that her fingers were severed so far down that they almost were like off completely, right? Like it's been told, like the fingers. Listen to what he says.
One injury in particular, defensively, where it sounds as though perhaps the knife was actually drug across the palm of one of the victim's hands, cutting all the way down to the tendons.
That's a bit different. That's a different location than what it's been like alluded to, because they've been saying this whole time fingers. And the way that he just did that, it's more like this, as if the knife went deep down in here to the point to where like this part of her hand would have been almost off. Very graphic, I know, but this is reality, okay? Which was it? Because there's a big difference between like defensive wounds to where someone is maybe like blocking from being attacked to where someone is actively fighting off their attacker. And so to me, okay, if the wound that is being described here on Xana is more like in the palm, that would mean to me that she grabbed the blade. Like her hand would have been closed around the blade itself. That's a lot different than just blocking and being hit by a knife. Okay. That's a lot different whenever you have the active motion of hand around the blade in order for it to like land in a certain area in your hand. That's different. That's different. She says something that I feel is inaccurate here, so we're going to touch on it. This is what she says.
The sticky blood was coagulating on sheets on the floor throughout the home.
Not throughout the home. Not throughout the home, Nancy Grace. Okay. What we have been told, and this has basically been what's the story has been from the very beginning whenever we started getting like true fact details, okay? Like in-depth details from the family, from people that were there whenever all of this happened, all right? We've talked about this a lot. We've talked about this a super lot. Christy, which is Kaylee's mother, told Daniel from Drunk Turkey in her interview that what she was told was that Hunter Johnson is the one that opened Xana's door and basically discovered what had happened in Xana's room. That for some reason, one or both of the roommates, Dylan and or Bethany, because that part is not specified, could not get Xana's door open. The reason why they were trying to get Xana's door open has not been specified because none of them knew what was going on. None of them knew why the door wouldn't open. The only reason I'm claiming that is because apparently there was like no blood that could be seen outside the door, under the door. They couldn't see blood anywhere. Now, we've also heard from law enforcement that this was one of the bloodiest scenes they've ever seen, and we even have photos of what is believed to be blood dripping from the wall from Xana's room. Okay. That being said, we also have been told that once police got there, they didn't even know that Maddie and Kaylee needed to even be checked on until after they assessed the situation that was going on from the 911 call and getting the police there in the first place, and then asking if anyone else lived in the home. And that's whenever they were like, oh, Maddie and Kaylee, they should be upstairs. And that's whenever they were discovered. That has led everyone to believe that there was not only any blood outside of Xana's door, outside of the room, not only that, but that there was no blood on the steps leading between the two actual crime scenes. And that's sort of been validated by the fact that we were told in the probable cause exhibits that there was a latent shoe print. One, very singular, very uno one, okay, one latent shoe print outside of Dylan's door. And the reason why they're using that and why it's in there is because according to what they have in this thing, Dylan opened her door after hearing noises several times and saw someone clad in black with bushy eyebrows walking past her door towards the back sliding glass door. Now, I highly doubt that they would be trying to base the shoe size of the suspect off of a latent shoe print that wasn't discovered until the second processing of the crime scene if there were full-on blood-saturated shoe prints of the suspect's shoe actually throughout the house. All I'm saying when it comes to that, Nancy should pay more attention because from all of the details, no, there was no blood scent outside of the house. There was no way to tell which way the suspect actually left, whether out a window, whether out the back slider, whether out the front door. Up until his arrest, we still have no answers. The police publicly came out and stated they had no answer for the way the suspect exited the scene. They didn't. Now, by now they might, maybe, but up until they gagged ordered everything, there was no answer for that. Therefore, there was no blood and no crazy shit throughout the entire house, Nancy Grace. That is leaving a perception of a very more drastic scene, and this is drastic enough. That's not necessary. And the truth matters here. And the truth is, from all the details, the blood was concealed to the crime scene rooms themselves and was not anywhere else throughout the entire home. Now, something that Nancy and the O'Driscoll guy are apparently in agreement to, and I don't agree with this whatsoever, is that these are leading questions when it comes to, are these true facts or not? And that's not true. They might be, so say, leading questions because they can be answered with yes or no, but they're questions based off of the particular and very specific person on the phone's knowledge of the case. Have you read, seen, or heard this? Not do you believe if this statement is true or false? It's have you read, seen, or heard? Have you had any knowledge of this put into your brain in any way, shape, or form? That's the yes or no, not if it's true or false. What I don't understand is how she can sit here and play a part of the hearing where Judge is like, you know, we've all worked really, really hard to keep the noise out of this. Like, we all wanted the gag order. We've all worked really hard to protect information, blah, 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 blah. I don't know how she can sit here and play this so condescendingly, okay? Because she's a big reason why there's so much noise. She's a huge reason why there's so much noise for stalking allegations that apparently are not true. She's done all kind of stuff. She literally came on and did an entire video about the whole like person who asked Kohberger to help her put security cameras in her apartment thing. They turned what literally could have been a very innocent good deed, okay? Because this woman apparently felt pretty comfortable with Bryan to go to him for help, okay? You wouldn't go to a guy that gave you the heebie-jeebies to help you put a freaking security system in your house, would you? Serious question, like literally, I want to know from men, women, any age, I don't give a damn what you're into, what you're not into, completely irrelevant. Would you ask someone who creeped you the hell out and made you feel uncomfortable to help you install security cameras into your very own home and then divulge a very scary situation that made you look very vulnerable towards this person that made you feel creeped out and uncomfortable? Would you put yourself as literally bait on a hook in front of somebody that made you feel uncomfortable and like they need to be like 50,000 feet away from you? No, you would not enlist in that person's help, okay? So there's a reason why this woman wanted Bryan Kohberger to be the one that helps her. There's a reason why she trusted him, okay? So I don't know if it literally is just a very innocent situation, and that's the case. But the fact that Nancy Grace and so many other people of her stature have been able to take what could be literally just an innocent good thing that he did to help a friend and try to turn it into this huge situation where he's been stalking people and this is something that he always does, and he was hacking her system to watch her undress and all this crazy stuff. We have never even heard from this person. There's no police reports for this stuff because nothing was ever reported. If anything, something was mentioned somewhere, and I don't even know where this originated from, guys. I don't know if somebody made a video. I don't know if it was like a Reddit post. I don't know where this came from. I've never been able to find where it originated from because we don't even know who this woman is, was, could be. Nothing. We know nothing. All we know is that a story was told about a woman who felt like somebody had been in her apartment, and I believe it was like a dorm. It was either a dorm room or it was an actual like campus apartment. I don't even know. I'm pretty positive it was like dorm. And see, I'm not even really quite sure if it happened at Washington State University, at WSU, where he was working at the time that all this crazy shit went down, or if it happened at the college he was at before, because he's gone through several. So I don't know. I can't find like the actual origin truth story to that. So if anyone knows, please leave it in the comments or let me know via email, like where the origin of this is and the truth to it, if it's true at all, because I've never been able to find it. We just know that someone claimed someone came into their apartment, or they felt like somebody came into their apartment because things didn't seem right. And they enlisted the help of Bryan Kohberger to put a security system in her apartment because she felt uncomfortable. That's the basis of the story. All the rest of this crazy stuff is literally people like Nancy Grace making up crap and spreading it around with no truth to anything. It's literally just people making crap up from facts. And again, it could have been just as innocent as this woman felt comfortable and trusted him and he helped a friend, and now he's being made to look like a monster for no reason off of false fact. Because I highly doubt that Nancy Grace would be privy to real information that's not out here in the public because it's protected under gag order and they just let her run amok running her mouth, right? I mean, obviously they wouldn't do that. I just don't understand why whenever this kind of stuff happens and there's a gag order and they're so adamant on stuff, they don't at least come out and get rid of all the false information that is going out in social media and that is going out on mainstream. Because look, we've literally got them claiming he wasn't stalking one of the victims, and none of these people like her are changing their minds yet. It's all like excuses and BS, and I just don't understand. Sometimes things really are just what they are in front of you. And if they're literally sitting here claiming there's no connection between him and the victims, then there's no way that he was stalking one of the victims. And now even the people that are trying to put him on death row are even claiming that's not true. I don't understand what else needs to happen for people to understand what's happening here. I really don't know any other way to put it. Okay. So she started playing where one of the law enforcement officers, I'm not good with their names, I just know Fry off the top of my head. This is the other guy. He's talking about how there's been a rumor that Kaylee did have a stalker, but they have not been able to verify that claim. Okay, I'm glad that she started playing this because now I'm going to give this next segment the benefit of the doubt and we're going to watch it together. Some things I've just reacted to with just this. Some things I've showed you guys. I don't have nothing else to do that's important today. I've handled all my important business. So I'm just doing things however I'm wanting to flow with them. So I'm going to play this and see. And I'm telling you, just the simple fact that she put that in here, I'm giving her the benefit of the doubt. I might regret it. I probably will. Let's see what she does.
We have heard mention that Kaylee stated she may have had a stalker. Detectives have been looking into that and to this point have been unable to corroborate the statement, although we continue to seek information and tips regarding that report. No suspects have been named or arrested, and we continue looking for what we believe to be a fixed blade knife used in the murders.
You are hearing Police Captain Roger Lanier
That
in
guy.
Moscow, Idaho, talking about the possibility that one of the Idaho victims, most likely to be Kaylee Goncalves, was stalked on social media. What does that have to do with the Kohberger case? Why is he talking about that? Obviously, because it's connected. Now, when we look,
did she not just see? She keeps just glancing over when these people say, but we can't validate, but we can't verify, but we can't substantiate, but it's not true. Why? I'm already regretting this. Already.
at these questions the defense has posed on phone calls to 400 of the jury pool. Number 9 says, have you read, seen, or heard Bryan Kohberger had followed one of the victims on social media? Well, that tells me right there, Tara Malik joining me, high-profile lawyer at Smith & Malik in Idaho, that tells me that if that evidence does come in, that Kohberger had been trying to hook up with one of the victims or follow them or stalk them, as it has been stated, they're going to try.
As it was just stated not to be true. Nancy. What the shit? Okay, I understand people that just like are like my way or the highway. I'm not going to change my mind. Once it's made up, and I don't give a damn what else comes out. Okay, I understand that, but to completely just keep like glancing over the fact that this is being stated by the freaking prosecution to be false and she's not acknowledging it. And if she's not going to repeat it and acknowledge it, then her viewers are not going to let that piece of information stick to their brain. The only thing that her people are taking away from this is everything that she is repeating and making a comment on. That's it. She's not, oh my God, I didn't think it was going to be this bad. Oh, okay.
To argue he just followed one of them innocently. So that tells me where they're going with that.
But that's not true either. Okay, and you guys are probably so sick and tired of me saying this, but I'm going to keep freaking saying it because it's a freaking fact that can be verified. We've talked about it. I've shown screenshots of it. All of you guys have seen it. I don't have the time to go back and find it right now, but this is literally something that has been proven to be a receipt, and you can go back and watch any of the docuseries, anything that any of these mainstream media people have done, and any of our reactions to those things, we've all talked about it. The Goncalveses will come out just like they have from the beginning, trying to claim that a verified Bryan Kohberger profile was following Kaylee. That's been the original story, okay? Every single time it has been mentioned after all of the chaos and all of the gag orders and all this stuff has started, okay? Every single interview that has been mentioned in, a disclaimer is given by the company claiming they are unable to validate what's being said. It's not true. They can't validate it. Whatever screenshots, I feel like I just said this in this video. I feel like I've already said this in this video. Whatever, I'm going to say it again. Whatever screenshots and timestamps or whatever that the Goncalveses are claiming that they have, if they're being shown to these production companies that are allowing this information out in these docuseries, in these 60-minute interviews and all these things that have been happening, none of them are saying that it's true because they can't validate it. None of the timestamps and information being shown to them add up. How come she doesn't acknowledge these things? How come they're not acknowledging any of this? It's like one of the most important things here.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, I think that they're trying to, or they may try and explain away if there is some evidence that Kohberger either came in contact or was familiar with these folks, and put it, as you mentioned, in an innocent spin on it.
Again, a freaking again. The state has stated this is a false statement. The state stated that this was a false statement in the exact same hearing that they are reacting to, and the entire freaking panel so far is acting like it wasn't said. They're still acting like there's a possibility that there's going to be evidence of this come out in trial when the freaking prosecutor literally came out and stated him stalking one of the victims was freaking false. We have to be living in an alternate reality. We have to be. There's some sort of like mix happening here, isn't there? Oh my, I'm getting way more aggravated than I really thought. Like, it's not just Nancy now. This is the second person that is not even acknowledging how like important it is, and they're using it as something else. They can't, because it didn't come out from the defense. It came out from the people that are trying to prosecute him. I'm so confused by this reaction.
There certainly seems to be, from what we know right now, a lot of evidence to suggest that this is a very calculated crime, and that he may have done some research ahead of time before it was actually committed.
Okay.
Familiarity with the location, with perhaps at least one of the individuals. So
see, okay, no, there's not any. She just said there would be. I was trying to say, okay, is she going to say something different than this whole thing? No, when she just said with one of the individuals, no, there's not. Whoever the hell you think you are, Miss Ma'am. No, there's not. The state has just said there's not. What do you mean? I'm so confused, guys. Like, I don't understand what's happening. Why are they acting like this has not been said? Like, I know I'm getting like heated and a little bit more than I probably should be, but I literally was not expecting them to just act as if this statement didn't exist. They're literally speaking as if that statement was not said. Oof. Did Ann Taylor say that she approved the questions or the subjects of the questions? Because that's what they're claiming in here, and I don't recall that. But if I'm wrong, and you guys know like the timestamp, obviously I'm going to go back and I'm going to try to figure it out myself after I'm done with all of this. I know that she did not give the people that did the survey any information about the case. They got all of the questions based off of the local media stuff, which is another reason why, like, I'm mentioning this whole part right here, because in her claiming and, in the conversation about Ann Taylor approving the subjects of the questions, she's then like acting like she doesn't understand how the questions came about or were created in the first place, whenever the entire situation was told to us. The entire thing was presented to us about how this works. They got the name of the subject, like they got the name of the case, State of Idaho versus Kohberger, or they got some sort of base information from Ann Taylor about the case that they needed to look up. Okay. Probably Brian's name, probably the case number, maybe. Probably not the case number because the case number is like irrelevant when it comes to like Google searches and stuff. But probably like Bryan Kohberger's name and all the victims' names, and he was like searching based off of those names in the case and blah blah blah. And I'm sure that his search terms he used progressed as he got more information on the case. Because again, this would be like you going in and deep diving into the case for the first time. This would be like you hearing about the Idaho murders for the very, 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 very first time and going in and doing a Google search and then doing searches based off of what you just learned and keeping on going and like digging deep to learn information. This would be like what this guy did. So he went in and he got like everything from the local news only. This has already been described to us. So why is she sitting here acting like, okay, if the defense didn't tell him anything, then how did he figure out how to make these questions do what they did? How did he figure out how to write these questions like this? Well, because he looked at the newspaper. That's freaking why. He told us that. And then she's sitting here comparing the process of these surveys to the process of like getting a polygraph test together, and about how if you want somebody to take a polygraph in, these criminal cases, you have to tell the polygrapher or, whatever. I don't know if I'm saying that word right, whatever. The person who administers the lie detector test, you have to tell that person the questions to ask. Okay, well, these are two completely different things, Nancy. That's like apples to oranges. The processes for these things are not the same. They're not. One is an independent doctor who does this on contract and gets paid to do these surveys. The other one is something that could be implemented into an actual investigative process from a law enforcement agency. Those two things are not the same. You cannot compare them. Okay, so I'm going to look like this the rest of the video. Long story short, my screen shattered yesterday whenever we were in the middle of Houston, and I had to hurry up and get back to where I knew how to drive around without GPS so my brain would stop freaking out, right? The phone place that's local did not have my screen, and I paid extra for my part to get overnighted, and miraculously, it actually came in whenever it was supposed to and just showed up. So I had to leave, which means I had to get out of my robe and get into actual human clothes because I was going to have to go out into the public around the people. So now this is what I'm in, just so you guys know why all of a sudden there's like a costume change. Okay, so I feel like she just said something else that is factually inaccurate, and that is based off of everything that us out here have witnessed. Now, she's talking about how the prosecution has every right to basically question and try to combat whatever Bryan Kohberger's alibi is going to be. And she's talking about like the navigation system in Bryan Kohberger's car. There isn't one. There isn't one. We've already been able to determine by looking at his dashboard from multiple body cams from him being pulled over, both the one where he was pulled over by a female in Washington and then the one that we have of him and his dad, right? We've all been able to determine by looking at his dashboard, there's no navigation system in his vehicle. There's no screen in his vehicle. It's a regular radio type screen. There's no navigation screen. So again, she's out here putting out technical information that's not true because there's no navigation system in the vehicle that we see Bryan Kohberger driving in both of these body cams of these cops. And they're months apart, okay? There's no navigational screen. There's no navigation system. Why is she allowed to come out and say stuff like that? It's not true. It's not a fact. Anyone that has watched her go over the body cam footage, Coffindaffer go over the body cam footage, Banfield go over the body cam footage, literally everyone that has seen those footages knows there's no screen for a navigation system. Why is she saying it? Oh, look, she shows it. She shows it. Look, there's no navigational screen here. This is a little bitty screen to maybe tell you like what song is playing, what radio station it is. And I swear this right here is still a CD slot. Okay. There's no navigational system in this car, Nancy. I don't understand how she sees this as an inconsistency and not like pieces that actually fit together, because to me, these pieces fit together for what the narrative of these pieces are. Okay, let me explain. She's sitting here claiming that their alibi is that he was driving around that night, okay, and that was like a hobby of his, was to just go for long drives in the middle of the night. Okay, that's a hobby for a lot of people. We all know that that's not an uncommon thing for people to do. Now, She's then claiming that they're going to use the fact that there was a change in the year range for the Elantra that was being looked for and say that, yeah, it was a car kind of like his, but it wasn't his, blah, blah, blah. She's acting like these two things are not like consistent in any way, and in fact prove each other to be worthless to the defense's story. But how is that if they have such a wide range of white Elantras they're looking for, and most of everything they have is at night CCTV that they can't even read the license plate number on, then how are they supposed to exactly be sure that the Elantras that they're piecing together in these videos are the exact same one? How do they actually know that? They could be getting an angle of a car in one camera view that doesn't show something very specific that should be there, that doesn't match another angle that they have from another car. If there's so many Elantras that look like that in that area, and they had to change the year range and elongate the year range being looked for, to me, that's an issue, especially when after all is said and done, they have nothing that is clear enough as to read a freaking license plate. It's useless information to me.
And by the way, he often drives around late at night, all alone, which screams to me, freaky dude.
Do you know how many millions of people across the country she just insulted? My father included. Damn. And how can she sit here and state that the defense doing this survey is their attempt to dismantle all of the state's evidence? The state is the one who came out and said that Bryan Kohberger was not stalking one of the victims. That is the state tearing apart their own case. They didn't have to say that. They didn't have to have their main argument here be that the stalking rumors have been false this entire time. They didn't have to do that. The defense is not tearing apart the state's case. The state is literally pulling the threads out of their own case. Nancy, I don't know how you can't see that. Now, her narrator here also says that these 400 witnesses are going to be called during the 6-week trial. And that's something that I'm still questioning, because that's a lot of people to be called to the stand as character witnesses for Bryan Kohberger. Because they've already stated that it's going to be in the state's evidence that gets presented that's going to prove Bryan Kohberger's alibi. So it's not going to be some witnesses that the defense calls is some sort of crazy witness to Bryan's alibi. That's not what they've been telling us at all. It's the opposite. It's going to be the literal evidence and the witness testimony that gets presented by the state that's going to prove Bryan's alibi. So if they're claiming they're going to be calling 400 freaking people to the stand, that's literally going to have to be character witnesses. And why do you have to call that many people to the stand about someone's character if you have concrete proof that he wasn't there? If this alibi is going to be so proven by the state, what do you need the character witnesses for? Because that's a lot of freaking people for someone to, who's supposed to be a loner and didn't really have a lot of friends. Because we even know from people that get on YouTube and talk on channels that Bryan, even in high school, didn't have a huge group of friends. He had people that he talked to, he had people that he was cool with, but it wasn't until his weight loss and, a couple other changes in his life that he kind of started having other friends. But we do see him surrounded by people in all of these videos, little snippets of videos that we see, and pictures of him being at book signings and stuff. He's constantly surrounded by people. So I guess it is possible that he really might in true life have a whole lot more friends than we're being told. And maybe he's just asked everyone to be quiet. And maybe that's why we haven't heard anything. But then again, it's so not normal for things like that to be kept quiet and people to just not want to be recognized for their part in something. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's all just very, very, very strange. And it's just not making sense. None of it ever has made any sense. That's why I was wondering, are these still people that she needs to speak to gather evidence on his innocence? Or are they really going to be bringing 400 freaking people to the stand just to talk about Bryan's life? Because that's what Nancy's, narrator is making it sound. And that's how it seems to be. A lot of people are thinking that's what's going to be happening here. But to me, that's insane. And seems like I don't want to say a complete waste of time, but it does sound like a waste of time. Because the only thing that really matters here is the cold, hard evidence of the night in question. And the 8 hours that went through, or shall I say early morning. because we're being told like 4 something in the morning, right? That's all that matters, is the cold hard evidence of the facts. So 400 character witnesses literally going to be taking the stand. You know how many? Wow. That's like 400 people asking to be doxxed, guys. Because if these people take the stand and this is live streamed, their names are going to be out there. All of their information is going to be out there. All these people that go out and go crazy and attack all of these people here on, YouTube and all these places, all these doxers everywhere, they're going to have 400 new targets if that's the case. We all know I'm right. So that's crazy to me that 400 people would be willing to take the stand. But I mean, if that's true, then maybe that does say something to Bryan's innocence, right? It's wild. I don't know. Well, this took a lot longer than I thought. Like, I knew I was going to have stuff to say, but I didn't think I was going to have this much to say. I am just still so, I guess, I don't know. This is a common thing. This is another thing I say all the time. I'm shocked, but I'm not surprised. I don't know why I'm so flabbergasted, because I should know this. I should know better already, right? I'm just still floored that she is glazing right over the fact that Bill Thompson has had to come out and claim that the stalking rumors were false. She's not entertaining it whatsoever, and I'm not understanding why. Because she's going to have to come out and admit that she was giving false information out there. Okay, well, lots of us talked about it, Nancy. Lots of us discussed it because it's something that was insinuated, but a lot of us didn't come out and concrete down a bunch of bullshit. You could easily be a woman, all right, and come out here and be like, I'm so sorry that I hammered this down. The state has now come out and claimed that the stalking rumors against Bryan Kohberger were false. This is where the information came from. This is the way that we interpreted it, and it turns out that we interpreted it incorrectly. Why is there never a retraction? Why is there never any of them that come out and be like, oh, my bad, bro. This is what really happened, and now this is what we're coming out with. See, Nancy Grace comes out here and she puts her like wholehearted opinion down on these things when there's no evidence of stuff. Like, it's okay to come out here and be suspicious and ask questions, but whenever you are someone of a stature like Nancy Grace, like Ashley Banfield, like Jennifer Coffindaffer, like so freaking many other people with such a huge following and millions of people that hear their voices, when you are of that stature, you have a higher responsibility. And for her to sit there and talk about this hearing and completely glaze over the most important thing that happened is disgusting. And I don't understand how so many people can still take her as a credible source of finding out what goes on in these cases, because she only sticks to her agenda. She only sticks to her narrative. Now, they don't cut out at all. They didn't cut out anything about anyone mentioning this. Shit, she even read the question herself and glazed over it like it didn't even happen. I don't understand that way of thinking, guys. I just don't understand it at all. I don't get it. But I want to know what you guys think about all of this information that they have out here that's incorrect. And how do you think this should be handled? Should people like Nancy Grace have to be actually held accountable for the crap that goes on in these cases? Because there's a lot of this that gets started and spread, and then it gets proven false, or it gets proven to be a completely different way than how they've portrayed it, and they never come out and fix it. And it's not fair. It's not fair. People like us that are out here trying to figure things out, we misspeak like one little thing and thousands of people attack us for it, okay? But these mainstream people that have an actual footprint in how these cases play out, where's their accountability? She should be held accountable. Coffindaffer should be held accountable. Banfield should be held accountable. They spread false information about someone that is facing the death penalty. And is that not like one of the most important things here? This man is facing like a literal firing squad, and they're out here just spreading this information and not even trying to retract it whenever it's found out to actually be false. Something's got to change. But again, I want to know what you guys think down in the comments. If you like the way that I present this information and give my opinion, please do not forget to leave a like on your way out and subscribe to the channel if you are not subscribed already. See y'all.